The endless dark of space was cold and silent, but the alien fleet was alive with power. Their ships were black and sharp, like blades floating above the stars. The alien council had gathered in the great hall of their flagship. They spoke about humans again and again, their voices filled with doubt and anger. To most of them, humans were nothing but primitive creatures, small and weak, not worth the attention of their great empire. But some reports were strange. Humans were fighting back against threats stronger than them. They were surviving battles that should have destroyed them. The council wanted answers. Among the council, there was one who did not belong. Her name was Lyra. She was young, far younger than the others, and she was not like them. Her eyes were always filled with questions. Her heart was always restless. While the council spoke of humans as a danger or a nuisance, she felt something different. She wanted to see them with her own eyes. The others laughed at her. They told her that humans were animals, nothing more. They told her to stay silent. But inside her heart, she felt that humans were not what the council believed. That night, when the fleet was quiet and the council was sleeping, Lyra made a choice. She took a small scout ship and left without permission. Her hands shook as she touched the controls, but her eyes stayed fixed on the bright blue world ahead. The humans called it Earth. As her ship moved closer, she saw colors she had never seen before. The oceans were deep and alive, the land was green with forests, the cities shined with countless lights. It was not a dead world. It was full of life, full of energy. She could feel it even from the sky. When she landed in a quiet forest, she stepped outside for the first time. The air touched her skin, warm and gentle. She could hear birds singing in the trees. She could hear the wind moving through the leaves. Every sound was strange to her, yet it made her heart race with excitement. She looked around and thought to herself that maybe this world was more beautiful than any she had seen before. But she was not alone. A young human soldier was moving through the same forest. He had become separated from his unit during a training exercise. His boots broke the silence as he walked carefully, searching for a way back. He did not expect to find anything unusual. But then he stopped. Ahead of him, standing in the soft glow of the moonlight, was a figure unlike any he had ever seen. Lyra froze as she saw him. She had studied pictures of humans in the council archives, but seeing one with her own eyes was different. His eyes were sharp but filled with something she could not understand. For a long moment, both of them stood still. The soldier's first instinct was to raise his weapon. His training told him that any unknown figure could be a threat. His hand moved toward the gun. Lyra tensed, expecting violence, expecting him to attack like the council had always said humans would. But then, something unexpected happened. The soldier's hand stopped. He lowered his weapon slowly. Their eyes met, and the forest became quiet again. Lyra felt a strange pressure in her chest. The human was not screaming. He was not attacking. He was watching her with calm curiosity, as if he wanted to understand her. For the first time in her life, she felt seen not as an enemy, not as an experiment, but simply as a being. She whispered softly, words only she could hear. "They are not like we were told." Her voice trembled, but her heart felt stronger. She wanted to know more. She wanted to speak, but before she could, a sharp sound cut through the silence. A shadow moved between the trees. Far away, hidden among the darkness, another alien scout was watching. He had followed Lyra without her knowing. His orders were clear. The council had warned that if she ever made contact with humans, she would not be allowed to return. He raised his weapon, his eyes fixed on her and the human standing in front of her. Lyra did not know he was there. The human did not know either. But the forest now held 3 souls instead of 2. The moment was fragile, like glass ready to break. Lyra stood still, her eyes locked on the human soldier. The soldier took a small step forward, lowering his hands to show he did not wish to fight. In his mind, he thought this strange glowing figure might not be a threat at all. He wanted to understand. But above them, in the dark sky, the alien fleet was waiting. The council did not forgive betrayal. If they learned of Lyra's choice, if they discovered her connection to a human, she would face punishment that no one could escape. The night was silent again, but danger was hiding in its shadows. Lyra's heart raced, not from fear, but from something new, something she could not explain. She felt that this meeting would change everything, not just for her, but for her entire species. The night in the forest grew colder, and the silence stretched between the alien girl and the human soldier. Neither of them spoke. They only looked at each other, both unsure of what would happen next. Lyra felt her chest tighten with fear and curiosity. The human had not attacked her. He had not screamed. That was already enough to shake everything she had been taught. The soldier's name was Daniel. His mind raced as he studied her glowing skin and strange silver eyes. He had trained for years to face enemies, to survive ambushes, to never hesitate. Yet here he stood, unable to even raise his weapon. He felt that the alien before him was not a monster but someone lost, someone trying to understand. He opened his mouth to speak but stopped. What words could he use? Would she even understand? Lyra tilted her head. She had learned human languages in secret, studying recordings stolen from the council archives. Her voice trembled as she tried her first human word. Hello. Daniel froze. The sound was soft but clear. He blinked, surprised that she could speak at all. Slowly, carefully, he lowered his weapon to the ground and lifted his empty hands to show he meant no harm. Hello, he answered back. For a moment, something invisible connected them. Two beings from different worlds, speaking the same simple word. But far in the shadows, the hidden scout tightened his grip on his weapon. His orders were simple. Kill the human. Capture Lyra. Bring her back to the council for judgment. His finger hovered over the trigger, but he hesitated. Lyra was the council's youngest. Some said she had a destiny. Still, rules were rules. And rules could not be broken. Lyra stepped closer to Daniel, her glowing eyes reflecting the moonlight. You are not dangerous, she asked slowly, the words broken but understandable. Daniel shook his head. Not to you. He wanted to ask her why she was here, where she had come from, and if there were more like her. But he saw the fear in her eyes. He kept his voice calm and soft. Are you alone? The question cut deep into her heart. Lyra thought of the council, of their harsh words, of their cruel laughter. She thought of her secret flight from the fleet, of her wish to see humans with her own eyes. And she thought of the scout who might have followed her. She forced a small nod. Yes, she whispered. Daniel frowned. Something in her tone felt wrong. He had been a soldier long enough to hear when someone was hiding the truth. He looked around the forest, his instincts warning him. The trees seemed too quiet. The shadows seemed too heavy. Lyra noticed his sudden tension. She turned her head slightly, scanning the forest with senses sharper than his. For a second, she thought she saw movement between the trees, but when she focused, it was gone. Her heart raced. She did not want this meeting to end in violence. She did not want her people to know what she had done. Daniel slowly bent down and picked up a small stick from the ground. He drew a circle in the dirt, then another circle inside it. He pointed at the inner circle. You, he said. Then he pointed at the outer circle. Danger. Lyra's eyes widened. She understood his meaning. He was warning her. He knew something was wrong. Suddenly, a sharp sound cut through the night. A branch snapped in the distance. Daniel reacted instantly, raising his weapon and moving in front of Lyra. His eyes scanned the trees, his finger tight on the trigger. Lyra stood behind him, her body trembling. She knew exactly who it was. The scout had found them. From the shadows, a red beam of light flashed. Daniel pushed Lyra aside as the blast struck the ground where she had stood. Dirt and smoke rose into the air. The human soldier fired back blindly, his weapon cracking like thunder. The forest exploded with noise. Birds fled into the night sky. The scout stepped out, his dark armor glowing with alien energy. His voice was cold. Lyra. You broke the law. He aimed his weapon again, his eyes locked on her. You will return. The human will die. Daniel did not understand the words, but he understood the tone. He stepped between Lyra and the attacker, his weapon ready. He shouted, "Run!" But Lyra did not run. Something inside her refused to leave. She could not let the human die because of her. She raised her hand, and energy sparked around her fingers. The scout froze for a moment. She was not supposed to fight. She was not supposed to resist. Daniel glanced at her, shocked by the sudden glow of power forming in her hands. For the first time, he realized she was not just strange or beautiful, she was dangerous too. The scout fired again, but Lyra lifted her arm and the blast bent away, striking a tree instead. Daniel stared in disbelief. She had saved him. The forest burned with light and sound. 3 lives clashed under the moon, each step pulling them closer to a choice that would change everything. Lyra's heart beat faster, not from fear, but from the weight of her decision. She could not go back. She could not let this soldier die. The alien girl had crossed the line. And somewhere far above, on the silent fleet, the council would soon learn that one of their own had betrayed them for a human. The forest was no longer silent. Smoke drifted through the air where the blasts had burned the trees. The glow of alien energy clashed with the sharp fire of human bullets. Daniel's breath came fast as he held his weapon tight. He had fought in training and in battles, but never against something like this. The armored scout moved with deadly speed, his weapon glowing with red light, his eyes fixed on Lyra. Lyra's heart pounded. She had wanted to see humans, to understand them, but she had never wanted this fight. Yet here she was, standing shoulder to shoulder with one. Every choice she made now could decide not only her own life but also his. Her silver eyes blazed as she raised her hand again, sending a shield of energy to block another strike from the scout. Sparks flew as light met light. Daniel shouted over the noise, "Who is he?" Lyra's voice broke as she answered, "My people, my law, he hunts me." Daniel did not have time to ask more. The scout's weapon fired again, this time grazing his arm. Pain burned through him, but he gritted his teeth and fired back. His shots forced the scout to step behind a tree, giving them a brief moment of calm. Lyra looked at Daniel's wound, her heart heavy. Blood ran down his arm, staining his sleeve. She had never seen blood like this before, dark and warm, carrying the weight of a human life. She reached out with trembling fingers, energy glowing faintly. When she touched his skin, the bleeding slowed. Daniel's eyes widened. "You're healing me," he whispered. Lyra shook her head. "Not heal, only stop, for now." He gave a short nod, understanding her broken words. Even this small act was enough to keep him standing. The scout's voice cut through the night, deep and cold. "Lyra, do you think you can protect him? Do you think you can run? The council will not forgive you. This human is nothing. Kill him yourself, and maybe they will spare you." Lyra felt her chest twist. The scout's words were sharp, but she refused to answer. She stood taller, her glow brighter. For the first time, she was not the quiet, curious girl. She was something more. Daniel whispered, "He wants you to give up." Lyra's eyes locked on the human soldier. "I will not." The scout stepped from the shadows again, moving closer, his weapon ready. Daniel raised his gun, but his bullets barely scratched the alien's armor. The scout fired, and Daniel rolled to the side, the beam barely missing him. Lyra raised both hands, forming a wall of energy that shook the ground. The scout stumbled back, surprised at her strength. "You cannot fight me," he snarled. "You were never trained for war." Lyra's voice grew stronger. "Maybe. But humans, they fight without training. They fight to live." Her words confused him for a moment, but Daniel understood. She was learning from him, from humanity itself. Together they pushed back. Daniel's gunfire forced the scout to move, and Lyra's glowing shield stopped his strikes. For a few moments, they held their ground. But the scout was stronger, faster, and more experienced. If the fight continued, they would both lose. Daniel breathed hard, sweat on his forehead. He turned his head toward Lyra. "We need to move. We can't win here." Lyra hesitated. Running would mean leaving her people's scout alive. He would report back. The council would know. But staying meant certain death. The scout raised his weapon for another strike, but Daniel grabbed Lyra's wrist and pulled her into the trees. They ran, branches breaking under their steps, hearts racing. Blasts followed behind them, tearing the ground where they had just been. The forest became a blur of shadows and light. Lyra's glow guided the path, but it also made them a target. She tried to dim it, but fear and adrenaline made it burn brighter. Daniel noticed and whispered, "You're like a torch out here." She bit her lip, not fully understanding, but she knew what he meant. She was too easy to see. Finally, they stumbled into a rocky clearing where an old cabin stood, broken and abandoned. Daniel pushed the door open, dragging Lyra inside. Dust filled the air, and the wood creaked under their weight. He shut the door and leaned against it, his chest rising and falling. Lyra moved to the window, watching the dark forest outside. She could not see the scout, but she knew he was still out there. Waiting. Hunting. Daniel checked his weapon. He had only a few bullets left. He cursed under his breath, then looked at Lyra. "Why is he after you? Why would your own people want you dead?" Lyra's lips trembled. She had never spoken these words aloud, not even to herself. But now there was no choice. She looked at him with eyes full of both fear and hope. "Because I saw you. Because I see humans. Council fears what I feel." Daniel frowned, not fully understanding. But he knew one thing. She was in danger because she dared to believe something different. Outside, the forest grew quiet again. Too quiet. Lyra's body stiffened. She whispered, "He waits. He calls more." Daniel's stomach dropped. More scouts were coming. The alien girl had started something that could not be undone. The air inside the old cabin was heavy with dust, but it felt safer than the open forest. Daniel pressed his back against the wall, listening for sounds outside. His heartbeat pounded in his ears, but his hands stayed steady on his weapon. Lyra stood near the window, her silver eyes glowing faintly in the dark. Every few seconds, she looked into the forest as if she could sense something moving. Neither of them spoke for a while. The silence was not peace. It was waiting. Finally, Daniel whispered, "If more of them are coming, we can't stay here." Lyra turned to him slowly. "If we run, they will follow. If we hide, they will find." Daniel frowned. She was right. The scout had seen them. Others would not be far behind. He felt trapped between choices, and each one seemed worse than the last. His arm still ached from the wound, but her strange touch had slowed the bleeding enough to keep him moving. He studied her glowing skin in the darkness. She looked fragile, almost delicate, but he had seen her bend a beam of light with her own hands. She was not weak. Outside, the wind shifted. The forest groaned as if it carried a secret. Daniel gripped his gun tighter. Lyra's eyes narrowed. She whispered, "They come." Before Daniel could answer, the cabin wall shook with a blast. Wood cracked and splinters flew as the door burst open. The scout stepped inside, weapon ready, his armor glowing red. His voice was sharp. "Lyra, you cannot run from us." Daniel fired without hesitation. Bullets struck the scout's chest, sparking against the armor but not breaking it. The alien raised his weapon, aiming at Daniel, but Lyra lifted her hand. A wall of light shimmered in front of them, catching the blast before it hit. The cabin shook again, dust falling from the ceiling. Daniel shouted, "We can't stay here. This place won't hold." Lyra nodded. She grabbed his arm and pulled him toward the back. There was another door, half broken, leading into the trees. Together they ran, the night air rushing against their faces. Behind them, the scout fired again, tearing the cabin apart. They raced through the forest, branches whipping at their skin, the ground rough under their boots. Daniel's lungs burned, but he pushed forward. Lyra's glow guided him through the darkness like a star. She glanced back once, her face filled with fear and determination. "More are close. I feel them." Daniel's jaw tightened. "How many?" Her voice was low. "Too many." The forest opened into a wide clearing. The moonlight shined on the grass, cold and silver. For a brief moment, it felt like freedom. But then shadows moved at the edges. Figures stepped out, tall and armored, their weapons glowing red. 3 scouts, then 4, then more. They surrounded the clearing like hunters closing in on prey. Daniel raised his gun, but his hands trembled. There were too many. His bullets would not last. He glanced at Lyra. She stood tall, her glow brighter than before. Her voice shook, but she spoke loudly enough for them all to hear. Stop. Humans are not what you think. They are more. The scouts did not answer. Their weapons rose as one, red lights aiming at her heart. Daniel's instincts screamed at him to shield her, to fight, even if it was useless. He stepped in front of her, his finger tight on the trigger. His voice was rough. If you want her, you'll have to go through me. The scouts paused for a second, almost surprised. They had seen humans fight before, but this was different. This was not war, not orders, not survival of a group. This was one man standing against death for someone not even of his own kind. Lyra looked at him, her chest tightening. She whispered, "Why? You risk for me." Daniel did not take his eyes off the scouts. "Because you're worth it." The words struck deeper than any weapon. Lyra felt her glow surge, brighter than ever, filling the clearing with white light. The scouts shielded their eyes. Her power burned inside her, wild and untrained, but unstoppable. She spread her arms, and the ground itself shook. A wave of energy exploded outward, knocking the scouts back. Their weapons flew from their hands, crashing into the grass. Some fell, others stumbled, their armor cracking under the force. For a moment, the clearing belonged to her. Daniel stared in shock, blinded by the brightness. He could feel the heat on his skin, but it did not burn him. He looked at her not with fear, but with awe. When the light faded, the scouts lay scattered. Some struggled to stand, others crawled away. Lyra fell to her knees, her body shaking. The power had drained her, leaving her pale and weak. Daniel dropped beside her, wrapping his arm around her to keep her upright. She whispered with heavy breath, "Now, they will never stop. I broke the line." Daniel tightened his grip on her shoulder. "Then we'll fight. Together." Her tired eyes lifted to meet his. In that moment, she believed him. For the first time in her life, she felt she was not alone. But high above, in the silent black of space, the alien fleet stirred. Messages raced through the ships. The council had heard. Scouts reported betrayal. The youngest among them had sided with a human. The council's answer was simple. They would send an army. The forest was silent again, but it was not the silence of peace. It was the silence that came after a storm, heavy and full of warning. The scouts were gone, some crawling away, others carried by the shadows of the trees. But Lyra and Daniel knew this was not victory. It was only the beginning. Daniel helped Lyra stand. Her legs shook, and her silver glow was weak now, faint like the last light of evening. She leaned against him, her breath uneven. Daniel could feel her trembling, but he also saw the fire in her eyes. Even exhausted, she did not look defeated. He whispered, "You saved us." Lyra shook her head slowly. "Not saved. Only delayed. They call more." Daniel looked at the sky through the branches. His stomach tightened. He had seen the way armies moved, the way they never stopped until their mission was complete. If her people were coming, then the entire planet could soon be in danger. He gripped his weapon tighter, though he knew bullets would not stop what was on its way. They started moving again, deeper into the forest, trying to put distance between themselves and the clearing. Daniel guided her carefully, scanning every shadow. The moonlight above gave just enough light to walk, but it also made them visible. He wished for the dark, wished for a way to hide her glow. As they moved, Lyra spoke softly, almost like she was talking to herself. "Council fears humans. They say you are wild. Dangerous. But I see hope. I see something more." Daniel glanced at her, surprised. "Hope? In us?" Lyra nodded, her steps unsteady. "Yes. You fight when you are weak. You protect when you are alone. My people do not understand this." Her words sank deep into him. For years he had been trained to fight, to follow orders, to never question. But here was an alien girl, hunted by her own, saying humans carried something her powerful empire could not explain. He felt a strange pride rise inside him, but also fear. If the aliens were truly afraid of humanity, what would they do to stop it? Suddenly, a deep rumble echoed across the night sky. Daniel froze, pulling Lyra behind a tree. He looked up. At first, he thought it was thunder, but then he saw the dark shapes moving through the clouds. His heart sank. Ships. Not one, but many. Their glowing engines lit the sky like burning stars. Lyra's eyes widened. The fleet, they come. Daniel cursed under his breath. If the aliens were bringing ships, this was no longer just about the two of them. This was about Earth itself. A beam of red light cut across the sky, scanning the ground like a predator searching for prey. Daniel grabbed Lyra's hand and pulled her low. They crawled through the underbrush, hearts pounding, as the beam passed over the trees. The sound of engines roared above them. They found cover under a ridge of rocks. Daniel pressed his back against the stone, his breath ragged. Lyra crouched beside him, her eyes never leaving the sky. "They know," she whispered. "Council knows I touched your world. They will burn it to hide the truth." Daniel's fists clenched. He thought of his unit, his friends, his family. None of them knew what was coming. None of them could prepare for an invasion from the stars. His voice was hard. "Then we have to warn them." Lyra looked at him, her face pale. "If humans fight the fleet, you will fall. They are too strong." Daniel met her eyes. "Maybe. But we don't stop just because the enemy is stronger. That's the thing your people don't understand." She stared at him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. A small spark of her glow returned, faint but steady. The night grew darker as more ships spread across the sky. Daniel and Lyra moved carefully, avoiding the scanning lights, their bodies close to the ground. Every sound of engines made Daniel's heart pound faster. Every flicker of red across the trees made Lyra's chest tighten. Finally, they reached the edge of the forest. In the distance, Daniel saw the faint glow of city lights. Civilization. People. Safety, at least for a little while. But Lyra grabbed his arm before he stepped forward. Her voice was sharp. "No. If they see me, they will know. Your people are not ready. Panic will come." Daniel hesitated. She was right. If he brought her straight into the city, chaos would follow. He rubbed his face, thinking fast. "Then where do we go?" Lyra's gaze turned toward the mountains beyond the trees. "High ground. Signal. Call your kind. Tell them danger comes. Before it is too late." Daniel followed her eyes. The mountains were far, the path dangerous, but it was their only chance. He gave a short nod. "Then we climb." As they started toward the mountains, the sound of the fleet above grew louder. Ships were spreading across the horizon, covering the stars with their black hulls. The council was moving faster than either of them had hoped. Daniel tightened his grip on his weapon. Lyra's glow lit the path beside him. Their steps were heavy, their future uncertain. High above, the alien fleet prepared for war. And deep inside the flagship, the council sat in silence, their faces cold. One of their own had betrayed them for a human. To them, it was not just betrayal. It was infection. The order was given. Earth would burn. The mountains rose high above the forest, dark shapes cutting into the sky. Daniel and Lyra climbed the rocky paths, their bodies tired, their breaths heavy. Behind them, the night glowed with red lights as alien ships moved closer to the earth below. Every roar of engines reminded them that time was running out. Daniel's boots scraped against stone as he pulled Lyra up to a ledge. Her glow was dim now, almost fading, but her eyes were sharp. She looked at the sky and whispered, "They spread. They prepare to strike." Daniel nodded, his jaw set. "Then we have to be faster." They reached a peak where the wind howled. From there, the city lights were clear in the distance, and above them, the dark fleet filled the sky. Daniel pulled a small radio from his pack. Static crackled through it. He pressed the button and spoke into it with urgency. "This is Sergeant Daniel Hayes. Unknown hostile contact confirmed. Fleet in the sky. Repeat, fleet in the sky. Immediate response required." The radio hissed, then voices replied, confused and urgent. Say again, Sergeant. Fleet. You mean aircraft? Daniel's voice grew louder. No aircraft. Ships. From space. They're here. The silence that followed was heavy, then the voice returned, strained. Copy, Sergeant. Stay alive. Command will respond. Daniel lowered the radio, his face pale. He knew Earth was unprepared. They had weapons, yes, but nothing close to what the alien fleet carried. Lyra stood beside him, her eyes fixed on the sky. Your world is not ready. My council will erase you to hide the truth. They fear what I felt when I saw you. Daniel looked at her. Then we make them afraid of something else. Before Lyra could ask what he meant, the ground shook. A beam of red light cut through the sky, striking the mountain below. Rocks split, dust rising around them. Daniel grabbed Lyra and pulled her down as another blast tore through the ridge. From the smoke, dark shapes descended. Alien soldiers, armored and armed, stepping onto the mountain like shadows from the stars. They surrounded the peak, weapons aimed. Lyra's heart raced. She could feel the council's presence through them, cold and merciless. Her voice trembled. They come for me. They will kill you. Daniel raised his weapon, though he knew it was useless against so many. Then they'll have to go through me first. The soldiers closed in. Their leader, tall and sharp, pointed his weapon at Lyra. His voice was harsh. The council's will is clear. The human dies. You return. Lyra stepped forward, her glow flickering. She shook her head. No. I will not return. I have seen humans. I have seen their strength. You fear them because you know the truth. They are not weak. They are the future. The soldiers raised their weapons. Red lights filled the night. Daniel stood beside her, ready to fire even if it meant his life. His eyes met hers, and in that moment, no words were needed. He was with her until the end. Lyra closed her eyes. Deep inside, she felt the spark of her power. It was small, almost gone, but Daniel's presence gave it fire. The memory of him lowering his weapon, protecting her, standing against death, it filled her heart with something stronger than fear. Her glow burst outward, brighter than ever before. The soldiers staggered, shielding their eyes. Energy flowed through her body like a storm, rising higher and higher until the mountain itself trembled. Daniel watched in awe, unable to move. She was no longer just Lyra, the curious girl. She was something greater, a bridge between two worlds. With a cry that shook the air, Lyra released the power. A wave of white light exploded from her, sweeping across the mountain, knocking the alien soldiers off their feet. Their weapons shattered, their armor cracked. Some were thrown back into the sky itself, vanishing into the dark. Daniel shielded his eyes from the blinding glow. When it faded, the mountain was quiet again. The soldiers were gone, scattered and broken. Only the two of them remained, standing on the peak under the silent stars. Lyra fell to her knees, her body weak, her glow dim once more. Daniel rushed to her side, holding her steady. You did it, he whispered. Her voice was soft, almost fading. No, not done. Council will send more. They will never stop. Daniel tightened his grip. Then neither will we. You're not alone anymore. We'll fight them together. Humanity won't run. Lyra looked at him, her eyes full of both sorrow and hope. She nodded slowly. Together. Far above, the fleet still hung in the sky, waiting, preparing. But now they knew something had changed. One of their own had stood against them, not for power, not for conquest, but for a human. The council feared this more than any weapon. And on a mountain under the stars, a soldier and an alien girl stood side by side, ready for whatever came next. It was only the beginning.